Hello everyone, JamieStarr here with the New World News Network. If you saw my other video about the RNC, Stephen Colbert was doing a sort of Hunger Games satire bit about the elections, calling them the Hungry for Power Games. And I came across this article, which is about a few blocks from the DNC, tales from the city with the highest poverty rate amongst major U.S. cities. And I originally saw this because at first I thought this was a picture of Method Man at the DNC. It was actually Nasir Fears, 21 of North Philly, talked about 7 years he had spent on and off the streets after his family rejected him when he came out of the closet. He is now working for Wawa and pursuing his nursing certification. So this whole thing just sort of goes through, you know, what you're seeing at the DNC. It's not really any need to get into details. They go through all the different groups, the Bernie supporters, Hillary for prison, the communists. And then it sort of goes through that there are two cities in Philly this week. One that moved him for a few days, the media, the delegates, the protesters, and all the stripes. And one we live in every day, the one of contradiction and divide, the one with a downtown bursting with a new growth and neighborhoods plagued by the highest poverty rate of any big city in the nation. Now, I don't know how you juxtapose a downtown bursting with new growth and neighborhoods plagued by the highest poverty. Then again, my own city is kind of like that, where you have these new $250,000 condos being set up on the riverfront right next to the housing projects. So you do have this sort of wealthy group and then a subclass, which, you know, of course gets called gentrification, but I don't know, I have a hard time with that term because I had a friend of mine once come to me and say, you know, the problem with this area is that money comes in, but it never gets spread around. And lately I just think, well, what is the lower class offering that they would be given money for? Nothing. They're not creating anything. They're not offering services. They're not inventing anything. They're just, I don't even know, just kind of mucking along, you know, living off welfare and stuff. So unless you have a plan, you can't really pull yourself out of poverty just by wishing it would happen. But I digress. The point I wanted to make about this is it very much is a sort of Hunger Games thing that's going on, where, you know, in the Hunger Games you would have the people from the major city who are dressed in all these funny outfits and everything show up in these cities that are in squalor, where everyone's in rags and, you know, hunting and eating rats and things like that, and they just sort of show up with this pageantry, select their tribute, and then head off and leave everything in shambles again. And that's very much what is being described here. It basically is like the Hunger Games. God help us if Donald Trump wins, but how is it that 2 nights into the Democratic Convention held in a city where 1 out of 4 people lives in poverty, where 1 in 5 children goes without enough food, where 700 people sleep on the streets each night, the words hunger or homeless have barely even been mentioned from the lectern, if at all. And that's because the Democratic Party, because they're the ones that are pro-welfare state, they like it. They like the homelessness and the poverty because it then rationalizes them taking money from other people. They can then funnel this money around, take some off the top, and pose as having the solutions for these things, even though we've seen that 50 years of welfare has done nothing except increase poverty rates because people aren't producing and aren't creating their own incomes. They're just strictly in a mindset of consumption. So, I just wanted to point that out. I thought this was an interesting article kind of showing that it's the Hunger Games going on right in front of us, and no one's mentioning it, and if it is being mentioned, it's in this sort of joking, laugh at it, you know, with Stephen Colbert type manner. So, subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos, have a good one, everyone.